What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor Season 42 for the last time for the 3-hour finale episode. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and Rachel and I were texting last night as we were watching the finale, and we were just like, we are getting old because staying up until 11 o'clock to finish watching that finale, whew, I was ready to be in bed. Like, it was an exciting finale, I guess, but I like sleep, so.
Oh my gosh. Like, we knew it was a 3-hour. It's always 3 hours long, but I was secretly hoping it was ending at 10. I was like, why is it so late?
Yeah, so it's okay though. I feel like having the hour reunion show was a good thing, even if, like, I have some gripes about the format that we'll get to when we actually get to the point where it's a reunion show. But yeah.
I think overall, I thought this was such a fun season. This was a fun finale as well. I think on a rewatch, this will be a great season to rewatch to see Maryanne's full story because I remember us talking about it. We thought Maryanne was going to go pre-merge because she was getting so much content at the start of this season. We were thinking, oh, because Maryanne's going early, they want to use all of her confessionals because once she's not there anymore, they can't use her as the fun confessionals, the narrator confessionals anymore. So I was not expecting after the merge for Maryanne to make it all the way. So I think on a rewatch this season will be interesting to see all of the twists and turns that happened.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting too to like see Maryanne's full story. Just because I feel like a lot of her story was about like being weird or being the one who's left out. So I feel like it'll be interesting knowing that like this isn't going to end with her like being voted out, being the kid on the outside. It's going to end with her like being the winner, being the center of attention and everything. So yeah, I'm excited to rewatch it. Maybe see some of the older characters who I forgot about. Like people were commenting on Reddit about Daniel Strunk, and I was like, oh my god, I forgot that guy even existed. He was such a fun character when he was on. So
That's why we needed the pre-jury at the reunion segment because I wanted to see them and like have Daniel asked a question. Oh my gosh, so many missed opportunities with that reunion. But I also think this season will be really great to tell friends about. Like, if your friends haven't ever seen Survivor before, I feel like this is a great newbie cast that you can tell your friends, hey, check out Survivor, check out season 42. Similar to a lot of people say, hey, watch David vs. Goliath as a great introductory season. I think 42 is a great introductory season as well to get friends into the show.
yeah, I feel like it has a lot of great characters. It has a lot of great strategy. It has some twists that are not so great, but I feel like that's a lot of modern Survivor. There's some twists that you're like, okay, I could leave this behind, but I feel like this season was overall more successful than last season as far as the twists. So it is a pretty well-rounded season. I would say definitely like top 20 for me, which I guess isn't actually that narrow. But I don't want to like say anything before having rewatched the whole season. But it was a pretty
Top
good season.
half, that's pretty good. 50%. But I think with this season, it's also a great way because it is like the new era of Survivor. If your friends haven't seen any Survivor yet, telling them to watch 42 is good because seemingly these twists are going to be coming back in future seasons 43, 44. So telling them to watch an old season, they might fall in love with it and then they'll watch a new season and be like, WTF is happening? This was not what I signed up for.
I feel like the opposite can also happen though. Like if you get so used to the twists, then you go back and watch an old school season and you're like, there's not even an idol. That's kind of boring. So
I guess so. I guess so. You just can't go past before, the idols are there then. Don't watch 1 through 10.
yeah. So speaking of idols, I swear when they like had the whole thing about like, oh, do a word scramble and you'll get an advantage, I was like, is someone gonna get an idol on the last day the idols can be played? Because if that happens, I'm gonna lose my shit. So they all got this tree mail thing with a riddle that was a word scramble, and they had to solve it. And then once they solved the word scramble, it would tell them the location of an advantage, which thankfully was not an idol. It was just an advantage in the final immunity challenge. But man, oh man, this word scramble, it either, I feel like it's a combination of, it was like a pretty difficult word scramble, and then also Maryanne was sandbagging it because she didn't want one of the boys to get the advantage, and then also just sleep deprivation and food deprivation really take away from your mental power.
I thought it was so funny how Maryanne was just sitting there. Like, everyone else was trying to figure out, okay, what is this sleeping word? They couldn't do it. And then Maryanne's like, yeah, I actually don't want these guys to do it. I want Lindsay to go and find this advantage. And then she's just sitting there in the background of the scenes while, like, Jonathan and Mike are furiously trying to figure out what that word is. I was like, this is just so funny. Oh my gosh. But
It's funny, but also if that were me, I would have such a hard time doing that because like having to like sit there pretending to work on the puzzle without actually working on the puzzle would just like it would be torture. So props to Maryanne for like having the emotional and mental fortitude to actually do that.
it's like okay, we'll do some more school metaphors because that's going to be Alyssa and I's new brand now. Maryanne's sitting there. It's like, okay, the smart kid in the class, you don't want the other people cheating off of you for the test that you're doing. So she just pretends like she doesn't know the answer because she knew, hey, if she figured it out and they're all supposed to be working together, that the other people there would have copied her answers. So she didn't want that. So we'll go with that kind of metaphor. I was so surprised. They couldn't figure it out. And Lindsay said it was 40 minutes she was searching. They couldn't figure out sleeping.
I feel like it's one of those things where like in hindsight it's obvious, but also like Rachel, you play Wordle, right?
Yeah.
How many times have you been looking at the Wordle word, just like staring at it for several like minutes, and then like it takes you a while to just like figure it out, and then all of a sudden everything clicks into place. So I feel like it might be that kind of thing where like if you're staring at it and staring at it, like maybe you're having a hard time like getting that mental plasticity going. You can only see like one word and it's not actually a word that's there. So I feel like it makes sense that it would take 40 minutes, especially when you consider that they're like basically brain dead at this point. They do not have enough calories to support like high level functioning.
Okay, that's true. That's true. Last they filmed this in 2021, so Wordle wasn't popular yet, so we can give them a break. They weren't practicing their five-letter words yet. But next season's people, 43, 44, they've probably been doing Wordle since it's very popular right now, so they should be good at the word scramble if it's coming up in future seasons at the final five. But also, I think we might have talked about this last season. For me personally, not a fan of getting these advantages for the Final Five immunity challenge. Sure, it's better than getting an idol, like you were saying, at Final Five. That would be way too OP. But even here, these kinds of advantages are sort of OP as well. But last season, Erica won the word scramble and found the advantage. This season, Lindsay found it. Both of them didn't win that final immunity challenge. So I guess you could say, okay, it's not that OP of an advantage. But for me, to have it at final five and it's a challenge advantage, it just seems a little bit unfair.
Yeah, I feel like part of it is like if you gave that to someone like Jonathan, who's already pretty physically dominant and would just need extra time on the puzzle, like that would make it OP. And so I feel like it depends on like how wide the gradient is between the worst player and the best player, and then who on that gradient like gets the advantage. Because like if the player who's already the best player gets the advantage, and that's kind of like, okay, now you've made it impossible for everyone else to have a hope.
So I don't know what else they can do here at Final Five with an advantage besides not give one out this late. But I'm just like,
I feel like they can
imagine.
also tweak the advantage though, because it's like they basically made it 5 times easier for Lindsay by having her untie one knot instead of six. So it's like maybe she has to untie 3 knots instead of six. And so it's like there's ways to make it like an advantage without making it so different.
That's true. I'm just on the page of no extra advantages or disadvantages for anyone at the final immunity challenge. Maybe the advantage could be a disadvantage, like we've seen at Winners at War. But even that, I'm like, that's just so sort of sucky for the person that gets cursed or disadvantaged at the final five. I would be like, if you lost the game because of an advantage or disadvantage here, I'd be a little bit angry.
Yeah, but I guess it's also like you can make the argument that like, oh, if they earn the advantage, then it's not their fault, blah blah blah, you know? So I guess it's like I personally think there's just way too many advantages, so this is one I wouldn't mind cutting. But if you're someone who likes advantages, maybe it was a good thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and with this advantage for Maryanne, she's purposefully pretending to not figure out the word scramble so that Lindsay could maybe find the advantage. I low key, hindsight's 2020. Maryanne ends up winning the game, so this choice of letting Lindsay find the advantage doesn't really matter because Lindsay gets voted out here. But say if Lindsay did win this uh immunity challenge because she was only one puzzle piece behind Mike, I felt like it was a bad move for Maryanne to let Lindsay get this advantage because Lindsay gets the kudos and praise for unscrambling the word. She gets this clue. That's another advantage in her pocket that she can add to her resume. If she won that immunity challenge, that's her third individual immunity challenge. That's the most this season for a single person. That's a huge accomplishment. And she would get to Final Four because she was safe this round. I think that would really just bolstered Lindsay's resume so much that could have allowed her to win the game if she made it to final three.
I don't know, because I feel like Maryanne's whole argument was that she set herself up for like any possible configuration of final three in a way where she would still come out on top by voting out Omer. And so I feel like Maryanne's argument for why she deserved to win didn't change. And I think that maybe she wouldn't have had such a dominant win if Lindsay had been on the jury, or not on the jury, in the final three. Like, I think maybe it would have been like 6-3, or how many jurors were there? 10? 9? I can't count.
It's 9,
but I think it
7,
would have
2.
been,
I think 7, 2, so 9.
Yeah. So I think it would have been like maybe like a 6-3 vote instead of like a 8-1. But I still think that Maryanne would have won, even if Lindsay had like done this. Because I feel like Maryanne could even like say, like, guys, you know that I can do word puzzles. There's a reason I didn't do this. I didn't do this because I didn't want to be sitting next to Mike or whoever, you know? Like, whoever ends up not in the final three because of that, like, you could use that to your advantage, you know? So
I think
I still
it
think
could be
Maryanne wins.
I think it could be flipped. I think if Lindsay did win the word scramble advantage, win that final immunity, and then she gets the final four, Lindsay could have a really good chance at winning final immunity as well. I think that makes her a lot harder to beat versus if she didn't win the word scramble and she didn't win that immunity challenge like we saw, and then maybe Maryanne used her idol to save Lindsay. Then it could be more of a Maryanne move. Hey, I had this secret idol. I saved Lindsay. But also on the flip side, Lindsay could say, my social game was so great, I persuaded or manipulated Maryanne into playing her idol for me because she wanted me to go to the end with her or she thought she could beat me. Sort of similar thing like Maryanne was doing, pretending, hey, I'm actually like the weak person here. You should bring me to the end. Lindsay could say that she was also doing something similar to that to get someone to play the idol for her or to save her. But I just think, hindsight 2020, this letting Lindsay win the word scramble doesn't really matter because Maryanne won, but I think it could have brought her into a sticky situation if Lindsay's resume got so big after winning the last 3 immunity challenges here and the word scramble challenge.
Yeah, but Lindsay ends up going home. I feel like this was kind of an anticlimactic exit for her, especially because I feel like she was kind of portrayed the same way I think I mentioned last week. Like, she had this like single-minded hatred of Jonathan that just seemed kind of weird because it's like Jonathan and Mike are like at the reward, whatever. They're eating pasta, and Lindsay's just back at camp. Jonathan's living in her mind rent free. So I feel like that kind of thing just. I wish that Lindsay had gotten to go out on a higher note.
That's what they need Lindsay and Jonathan on a challenge rival season or the Amazing Race or something. Their bickering is just so odd but interesting. It's just so weird they're fighting, but it's so interesting to watch because they're like fighting really about nothing a lot of the times. I felt really sad for Lindsay. I sort of wanted to see Mike play the idol for Maryanne, and then maybe Maryanne would stand up and make a huge move in front of the jury, make this huge show, and play the idol for Lindsay. But it's smart that Maryanne didn't play the idol for Lindsay because it could have been a great thing for Lindsay's resume, getting someone else to play the idol for her when she was the dead person walking. She was going to be going home this episode. So it's like Maryanne said in the final tribal council, she had to do this with her, like, with strategy and not with emotion, because everyone was saying Lindsay was going to win the game if she didn't go out here.
Yeah, so bye-bye to Lindsay. Everything that you said. I hope that she comes back for another season of Survivor, but I don't think she will, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, probably not someone on the top of lists, I guess, to be brought back. I would think Hai, Drea, Omer probably top people to be brought back that didn't win the game. Maryanne obviously invited back if she wanted to play again for some kind of like legend season. Mike even could be brought back. I could see Mike on a heroes versus villains season as a villain. Like low key, if Mike embraces that villain role, that could be really fun.
That would be fun, but I feel like he wouldn't be able to do it, so.
He's too nice, it seems. But we go to this final immunity challenge. This was the most surprising part of the episode for me. Romeo winning this immunity challenge. I was so shook. I was like, okay, it got down to Romeo versus Jonathan, and I thought, done deal. Let me like zone out. Let me scroll Reddit. It's going to be commercial break soon because I thought Jonathan was going to win. And then Jonathan falls out and Romeo wins. I was like, oh my God, this is wild.
I feel like I kind of realized that Jonathan wasn't going to win just because they were like hanging at like the final two for too long. And it's like whenever Jonathan wins, I feel like they don't really like to make a big spectacle of it because it's like, oh, he's just winning again. He's just being like Hercules again or whatever. So I guess also I don't know how I feel about this being like a repeated Final Four challenge because like it's so deceptively simple and I'm not sure if I like it.
Tell that to Mike dropping out on one ball. Literally, if you blinked in the episode, you would miss him fumbling that ball. I was like, what the heck just happened? Jeff just said he was out. He didn't drop it. He just like fumbled the ball and then was out. And that just, it's got to be so sad to drop on one ball. That's literally just a ball catching challenge. It's no strategy of trying to time your balls so that there's 2 or 3 or 4 in there to get the timing correct so you can grab all of them. It's literally just a catching the ball challenge and sticking it back in the chute.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened to him there, but you know, I thought if Romeo was going to win any challenge, it does make sense that it's this one though, because it's kind of more like a rhythm thing. It's not really a strength thing. Like it's kind of endurance, but not really. So, you know, I'm glad that Romeo got to win. I feel like it kind of like bolstered the like finale's whole story about like the underdogs.
I agree. I was happy for Romeo. It was so exciting because I feel like I was just assuming Jonathan was going to win, and then, oh, maybe Jonathan would send himself into fire. That seems like something Jonathan might do, so it could be interesting there. But Romeo proved us all wrong and won a challenge, which is also exciting because if you're going out for this show, that's something that you want to check off your Survivor bucket list. You want that necklace, you want that photo op with Jeff, you want to win a challenge and get that moment. So it's really cool, especially winning the Final Four one and having all of this power. And then, like he said, he could say, no one brought me here. I'm not the quote GOAT of the season, but I won the challenge. I brought myself to final 3. No one dragged me along and brought me here. So I think that's an interesting thing to say, that, hey, yeah, I'm not just the GOAT here, but I won the challenge. I chose who I wanted to sit next to.
Yeah, and I think that, like, in some ways, it's difficult because I don't see a configuration where Romeo ever would have won. But I think if you're the Final Four winner and then you bring along the person who ends up winning the game instead of making them go to fire, like, that's kind of. I feel like you could definitely argue that Romeo made the wrong choice with who he chose to bring, but also he was never going to win anyway. So.
That's how I feel. It's interesting it's happened twice now. Romeo bringing Maryanne, last season Xander bringing Erica. It seems like both times these people underestimated the ending up winner of this season, thinking, okay, maybe they're less well liked, or maybe they don't have any strategy, so let me bring them to the end with me. So it's interesting that it's happened twice now for season 41 and 42. But Romeo sends Jonathan and Mike into fire. It sort of makes sense for Romeo's game. Let me send in the 2 big guys. He was sort of saying, okay, Maryanne and I played similar games, so let me bring Maryanne to the end because we were both at the bottom during the merge, which I guess that reasoning makes sense, but also it doesn't make sense to me really, because even if you don't think Maryanne is a threat to win the game, Romeo might think, okay, Maryanne and me are similar. She's not a threat. I'm not a threat. Let me bring her. But then if you're bringing the person similar to you to the end of the game, it's not the best, because those people, you might split votes between Maryanne and Romeo because you both, quote, played a similar game. Similar thing like Jonathan and Mike might split the votes if they were both at the end of the game because they both played like physical, big dog kind of games. Mike had more strategy than Jonathan, so he could get more votes, but they are both in that similar kind of area that I would be afraid if I were Mike or Jonathan to bring the other to the end. Similarly, Romeo maybe should have been afraid to bring Maryanne to the end because they're so similar.
Yeah, but I guess also, like I said, I don't see any situation where Romeo wins. So, like, maybe it makes sense that he would not want to bring her, but also, in the end, it doesn't really matter. Hindsight is 2020. So,
I guess a moot point at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter here, like you're saying. I think it would have been interesting if he sent like Mike and Maryanne into fire together, because people are realizing, Jonathan's maybe not as well liked on the jury. Let's bring him to the end. A Maryanne versus Mike fire. That would have been interesting. I think the winner of fire then, whether it was Maryanne or whether it was Mike, probably would win the game in that scenario.
yeah. So, good times.
But fire making strategy, now it's sort of changing, it seems. It used to sort of be, okay, the Chris Underwood, let me throw myself into fire, and winning fire basically cinches the deal. It helps you to win the game at the end of the season. But now it's seemingly like you want to be brought to the end. We've seen Tommy brought to the end and win, Erica brought to the end and win, Maryanne brought to the end and win. So you don't need to throw yourself into fire anymore to win the game, and you don't have to win fire in order to bolster your resume in order to win the game, because we've seen now Mike lose fire or Mike win fire but lose the game.
I feel like Chris Underwood was just in a very different position because of the fact that it was edge of extinction. So, is what it is.
But I guess in general, winning fire, like what, Wendell winning fire, I guess you can also say that's a asterisk season too, because it was a tie. So similar asterisk to Edge of Extinction. But Tony winning fire, winning the game, now it's like you don't necessarily need to win fire in order to win the game.
Yeah, and I do wonder if that means that like fire should just be phased out again, because the whole point was that fire was supposed to like keep the like best player safe at Final Four, but it seems like that doesn't even really happen that much anymore. Because like if you have someone bringing along the winner, that must mean that someone thinks that the eventual winner isn't that much of a threat. And so I feel like if that's the case, you can just phase out the fire, have Final Four be a regular vote again.
Which is interesting because I think that's sort of maybe the meta of how seasons are going now, where you want to play an under the radar game until the end game, sort of like we've seen Maryanne do. She was sort of under the radar until the Omer move, and then that's your big thing that you're bringing to the end. Maybe you sort of just do enough to not get voted out pre-merge, and then come merge, you lay low until the final 7 or 8, and then you make 1 or 2 big moves, and then you have that resume to win the game. Because it's like, if you're the High or Drea, if you're guns to the wall blazing now at final 8, you're going to get voted out. But if you lay low, you're going to make it further in the game. So maybe that's a new strategy of like sort of lay low and stick to the background until the end game, and then you step forward and then hope you don't get voted out before the final 3. Because it's like, I don't know. It's like if you're being brought to the end, like Tommy, like Erica, like Maryanne, you're sort of maybe underestimated because, oh, Xander didn't think Erica was going to win. Here, Romeo didn't think Maryanne was going to win. So then they're brought to the end. So maybe that's a new strategy. You want to be super underestimated until the very end, and you pull out a few big moves.
Yeah, and I guess I feel like one of the good things about Maryanne was that even though like a lot of her quote unquote big moves were towards the end, she was still like present in the season throughout. And I feel like one of the reasons that like Survivor 41's editing failed was the fact that like Erica wasn't shown to be like a force throughout her whole season, even though she was, and we know that like in hindsight. And so I feel like part of how to edit a successful winner in this era like is showing them even if they're not making big flashy moves.
Exactly. And that's one of the big gripes, I feel like, with Survivor 41 versus 42 is that the editing for 42 was just a lot more well-rounded. You got to see a lot more of the characters. Even if the characters weren't necessarily making a big move, you could see their social game or the relationships that they were forming. But like for Erica, we didn't even know Erica and Heather were that close. We didn't even see Erica throughout the whole pre-merge. And sure, you could say, yes, it's because the blue team was winning all of the challenges pre-merge. They didn't go to tribal council pre-merge. But even then, we saw a lot of like Sydney and Deshawn and Nasir, them talking about throwing challenges to get Erica out of the game. Never really even saw Erica or Heather's relationship there, which could have been something they fostered pre-merge. And then it's like, oh, this is a strong duo going throughout the game together. And then this is the eventual winner, and she won, and she had this strong relationship. But I think that's a big fault of 41 is that the editing just like all around was a lot worse than 42. We saw so many more storylines for 42 compared to 41, not even just the winner.
Yeah, and I feel like that's why even though 42 has like a lot of the same flaws as 41 as far as like the hourglass, the crazy amount of twists, all of that, I feel like that's why 42 is the more successful season.
So we go to Final Tribal Council. It seems like Mike lost the game at the Final Tribal Council speeches. It seems like from the exit interviews as well as the reunion show they did that a lot of people came into the Final Tribal undecided. They were maybe leaning towards Mike because Mike's game is easier to see. They're working with Mike. You can see Mike is doing strategy and social, creating alliances throughout the season just by working with him and playing the game with him, versus Maryanne's game is a lot more under the radar. It's harder to see unless she is able to verbalize it. So it does seem like Mike lost the game at this Final Tribal section doing the speeches. And it's tricky. I feel like he was trying to play the loyal game, trustworthy game, I'm not going to tell a lie kind of game. But it's so hard to do that kind of game without actually being a hypocrite about it and doing the lying and doing the backstabbing, which in Survivor, you're going to have to do it, which it seems like Mike did realize that that's what the jury wanted him to say. But it seems like he started off saying, yeah, I played this loyal game. I tried to be super, super loyal, even though it was Survivor.
Yeah, it seemed like he got the closest to getting people on board with him when he was like, yeah, I did end up doing some things that I said I wouldn't do. And I feel like if he had leaned more into that, Because I feel like part of Final Tribal is owning the game that you played and not the game that you wish that you played. And I feel like that's what Maryanne did really well. Like she acknowledged that like she wasn't like a big flashy player at the beginning and like her biggest move was the Omer move. And so I feel like that's one thing that you really have to give her credit for because she knew the game that she played and she talked about that game and not the game that she wished she had played.
And for Mike with the whole lying trustworthy game, I think if you're any kind of Survivor player, you don't want to go into Survivor ever saying that you're going to play the honest, non-lying, trustworthy game. Even if that's the game you want to play, keep it on the DL because if you even make one backstabbing move, people are going to be like, WTF, you're a liar. Why did you backstab me? XYZ. So I think it's more safe to not go in and say, I'm going to be the holier than thou person. I'm never going to lie, cheat, or steal in the game of Survivor. Then it's a lot safer because no one can really get you on your receipts here and be like, no, you said XYZ. Why did you backstab me and vote me out then? Because it does seem like if Mike didn't say he was trying to play a loyal, honest game, and then instead said, yeah, I'm going to lie, cheat, and steal. I'm sorry. Hi, I'm sorry, Drea. We were working together, but XYZ, I had to vote you out because of strategy and not of the emotions or being tricked or whatnot. Then he could have gotten a lot more people on board.
Yeah, and I think Drea did make a point, like, oh, we've all like lied to each other and like backstabbed each other. But I think that ultimately it was Mike not being willing to own up to what he did.
Yeah, and I guess not even realizing that he wasn't owning up to it or not even realizing that that's the answer that the jury wanted from him kind of thing. So sort of weird all around there. I feel sort of bad because Mike could have won the season here as well. I also feel a little bit bad for Romeo because it just sort of sucks. He was in such a dominant position come pre-merge. Him and Drea were running things on the blue team. We are all excited. Oh, a power duo, Romeo and Drea going into the merge together. And then going into the merge, he's just exiled and outcasted. No one wants to work with him. So it just sort of feels sucky. It's like he probably had such high hopes for his post merge game, but then to not be able to do that because you don't have the social capital and you're sort of, the quote goat of the season because no one wants to work with you, and then no one's going to vote you out because you're not doing anything there because no one wants to work with you. It's just sort of sucks. It's like, just vote me out to get me out of my misery if you're not going to play the game with me.
Yeah. So I did feel bad for him, but ultimately he still got third place. That's still good money. So
that's the thing that I sort of have an issue about. I guess Romeo, but not really Romeo, just people in general saying, I don't really care if I won or not. It could have been a defense mechanism, okay, saying I don't care if I didn't win because I didn't win and I don't want people to feel bad for me because I didn't win. So let me just say I didn't care if I won or not. I was here for the experience, saying that. But then it's sort of like if everyone, whether it's true or not, say it's true, someone doesn't really care if they win or not, they're just there for the experience. It's sort of like they automatically become someone you want to bring to the end because they're not going to win the game. And then, I mean, good for them. They won, like, third place is $85,000, second place is $100,000. That's a lot of money. But then it's sort of like if you're not playing to win, it's like, why play?
yeah, I guess part of it is like so many people will say like, "Oh, I wanted to be on Survivor my whole life," and I feel like honestly, like you should want to win, but you should be okay with not winning, and I feel like that's difficult to express.
Yeah. So it's like everyone, I guess, should want to win. And it could just be that defense mechanism. You just lost. So you're going to say you don't care because it's just awkward now that you're the loser sitting up there. But it's just, I don't know, even preseason, we see people in preseason interviews saying, yeah, I don't really care if I win or not. I'm not here for the money. I don't care for the money. I just want the experience, which, okay, great. You don't care about the money. You don't need to win for the money. You could win for the title. Like Russell Hantz just wants the title, didn't really care about the money. But I feel like every person cast should maybe want to win at least a little bit and not just be like, I'm fine with 10th place or I'm fine with last place. It's a free vacation.
Yeah. So, mm,
Alas, speaking of, Maryanne wins the season. I thought this was so exciting. Maryanne really won it for herself at the final tribal council speeches section. So, really good for her. Maryanne is so fun and inspiring, I think, as a young person. She's the same age as us. And so, for me watching, it really makes me feel like it's possible for someone our age, Alyssa, to go on and win Survivor because really, truly, I personally didn't think that someone our age could win.
yeah, and I feel like it didn't really come up that Maryanne was like younger until after she had already won. Because I feel like one of the things that Mike said in the reunion show was like this money is going to be able to help like set her up for a really great life. And I feel like that is kind of like perspective that we don't really see a lot. Where like someone who's older, like Mike, or I guess like Mike because he was older. Romeo's like I would say not middle aged, but he's like well established in his life. Like they have jobs, they have like things going for them, and so I feel like it's one of those things where like Maryanne, like $1 million is life changing for anyone, but I feel like it's especially life changing for someone who is younger, who like might not have the financial stability of an older person, and like the housing market in Canada, that's wild. You do not want to be a Canadian looking for a house, especially in like the Toronto area. So I feel like having that like financial stability, having that like cushion, I feel like is what every college graduate like wishes that they had. So yeah, I really liked that perspective, and I hope that more people like catch on to it.
That's true. Usually we hear the opposite perspective for young people like, oh, why would you ever give $1 million to someone 25 and under kind of thing? So it's sort of like the opposite viewpoint Mike was saying there. Oh, $1 million for someone that young could set them up for life. And so, Maryanne probably has a lot of student loans as a student. She can use that money for a lot of great things. And so I just think it's so inspiring. She was 23 when she won. And so she's a little bit older than us, born in late 1997. And Alyssa and I are born in 1998. So I'm like, dang, maybe it is possible for someone our age to win, which I just would not have think was possible.
Yeah, so that's really great. I feel like the whole reunion show, I enjoyed it, but I also wish that they had given them, like, literally just have them go back to Ponderosa and come back the next morning. Because I feel like everyone was so tired. Mike smashed, like, an entire pizza during that reunion show. And it's like, just let the poor man eat without asking him questions about everything that just happened. I feel like it's also hard for the losers to, like, lose with grace when they're like basically thrown immediately into the reunion show. Because I feel like even if you don't know for sure whether or not you're going to win or lose in like the 6 months between, like you're not going to be able to, you're going to be able to like process a little. You're going to be able to consider like, well, what if I do lose and stuff like that. So
Exactly. I think we talked about a lot of these gripes with the reunion after show last season about, okay, let them go to sleep, let them come back the next day. It's just sort of awkward having the two losing finalists there with the winner. Losing finalists are all like sort of sad, tired, hungry, just like weird all around. And then you have like the jury who are well slept and who have eaten a lot of food already. It's a weird juxtaposition to have them all there. And so like, we don't need to get into all of that again because we talked about it a lot last season. But Jeff and CBS production, they announced that going forward, there's not going to be any more of the live reunion shows where they, at the end of the season, reveal the votes 6 months later, 9 months later, depending on the season. Jeff reads them in LA to the live audience. That's no more anymore. It's going to be, hey, they're going to be reading the votes on the island now directly after the votes are cast, which is fun. You get to see the raw emotions and reactions from the people. But with the reunion shows, I like how they ask, like, you can see, okay, how is Maryanne doing now, a year after filming? What's she up to now, a year after filming? Versus having the reunion show directly after the season. The questions they were asking was like, oh, do you remember last week when this happened? How do you feel about that? And everyone was just like, haha, that was a good time. You don't really have any reflection or any like good answers to these questions yet.
Yeah. So I did they give like a reasoning behind why they're not doing the live reunion shows? Like, is it just a COVID thing?
Probably money, right? It's probably a lot cheaper to just do it there.
But I feel like they could probably make up all of their money just by like selling tickets, right?
I guess. So yeah, money and time for the cast and that like it's just easier to just film it there and edit it and just plop it on your TV probably.
Yeah, probably. But
But
yeah,
right, don't you want more hard-hitting questions?
yeah, I would like anything that's not just a rehash of the game. But, you know,
Yeah, and having the pre-jury, I wanted to see them there too. I'd love to hear from Daniel. You know how has he thought from that like wild tribal council? Hearing from Jenny from that wild tribal council, hearing from Lydia and all of her like quirky tweets that she tweets out. Like there's so many interesting fun things from the pre-jury that we could have asked them questions about. And yet we just heard like rehashing of the season that we literally just watched. And it's like I don't know. It's just so awkward having the reunion like this. I don't know.
I feel like the best part of the reunion was when it was over and we got to see the preview for 43.
That's true. Except with these reunions now, it seems like there's going to be a lot of more spoilers coming up. It seemed like there's a heck of a lot of spoilers for 42 because the reunion was pre-tape, so everyone knows the winner, everyone knows the boot list and stuff like that. You have to be so careful to not accidentally get spoiled online because even like Twitch, there's moderators, they delete comments. Reddit, there's moderators, they delete comments. Sometimes they're not fast enough and you might see something, or even YouTube videos. You can't watch anything anymore because people are spoiling it in the comment section of everywhere. And so with season
Yeah,
40,
it's like it used to be that you could have a guess of who was the winner depending on like who like gave good speeches at final three and stuff, but until the votes were read, you never knew. And so I guess like it's been said that like Russell leaked on his season that he was the winner, and no one believed that Natalie White was the winner because, you know, Russell said that he was the winner and all the leaked boot lists said he was the winner. So it's like that kind of thing where that's not going to happen anymore. Like you're going to know definitively who won before they even come back home.
which is sort of annoying. It gets rid of the fun if you're trying not to be spoiled and then you get that spoiler by accident and you weren't like seeking it out on like spoilers threads or anything like that. And even for Survivor 43, they did the little segment at the end of this reunion showing, okay, Survivor season 43, what's up? Here's some confessionals for some people. I thought this was really funny because Survivor 43 filming just started. So even though it just started, maybe they're like a week and a half in or whatever now. So they're probably at the merge already because the merge is at like day 12. So if they're already there, the spoiler, like the segment that they showed could potentially be spoilery, similar to how the 42 segment at the end of 41 had the potato line of potentially Tori saying the potato beware advantage phrase. The segment here for 43, if you're looking at the people that got confessionals, those are probably people that made the merge in 43 because it's already happening. So I'm like, you can't watch any Survivor previews anymore because they accidentally spoil so many things from CBS also.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting though because a lot of times people analyze the premieres to see like, oh, who's going to be a big character depending on like who's in the premiere and who's not. And if they haven't even like finished the season, you're never going to know like if like someone's in the premiere just because they're the winner or just because they like were convenient at the time. So
Yeah, it's like the previews for next week. Can't watch those anymore because they high key spoil the person getting voted out for the week after, which is sort of annoying. It's like in Winners at War, they spoiled that like Natalie was going to be the person winning the challenge to come back into the game because they showed a clip of the final immunity and Natalie was there. And we were like, what the heck? That sort of just ruins half of the finale for us. So can't watch anything CBS puts out because they high key have so many spoilers in their little previews also.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess overall, do you have any other thoughts on 42 you want to share before we start wrapping it up?
Yeah, so I'm excited for Maryanne. She's so fun. Definitely someone I would want to be friends with in real life. In the Rob has a podcast exit interviews that he was doing. They're all out. It's like an hour and 20 minutes long with all 5 of the finale people. In Maryanne's exit interview, like Rob asks her about Zach, and then Zach is literally like off the screen of her interview Zoom, and then he like comes in like answers questions. It was really cute. So I recommend watching that. That was really fun. And Maryanne is the first Black woman to win Survivor in 20 years, which is insane, and only the second Black woman ever to win Survivor after Vesepia. So that's a huge, huge accomplishment.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that you said. Maryanne seems like a really great winner. I really hope she comes back again for any season, really, just because I feel like she's such a great personality. She seems like a lovely person. I'm really happy that she won.
Yeah, so I guess plans for the off season. If you have any videos that you want to see us do, definitely leave a comment down below. Any kind of like rankings, boot list, fan cast assessments, let us know. We're also thinking of doing some more of those DIY survivor challenges. So we have to create them and then film ourselves doing them. And then there might be something coming up in the works in the summer for like a I guess, Survivor, how would you call it, Alyssa? Like ranking of seasons with a bunch of Survivor, like other content creators on YouTube?
A Survivor collaboration, you might say.
Yes. Potentially coming up in this off season. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested in hearing our thoughts on different seasons, ranking seasons. And yeah, let us know if you have any other videos that you wanted to see us do during this off season.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for sticking with us through this whole season. Let us know in the comments down below anything about this season you haven't gotten to say yet, anything you wish that we had said. What do you think about who won the game? Let us know all that and more in the comments down below, and we will see you soon with a new video.